Okay.
It's just who I am, okay? Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Okay.
All right.
She knows.
I told him.
Okay.
Okay. And looks good here. All right. And all right. No, we don't clap it because. There. Good. All right.
It's nice.
Not a lot.
It looks like
Good. How's this
No.
sound? Can I see it?
5.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
a little lower, but these are all the notes from the talks we've had.
Oh, okay.
I was keeping track.
Oh, I know you were writing.
Good.
Besides, you know me for years.
All right.
I didn't know this story.
No, you never asked.
I didn't ask.
I know.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm here with Raíces Latinas Agriculture in McHenry County, and we are capturing an oral history. I will start by asking your name.
My name is San Juanita Salinas Galarza, but I am known in my community as Janie Galarza.
Okay. And Janie, do you prefer that I call you Janie?
Yes.
Okay. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Eagle Pass, Texas on July 2nd, 1962, and raised in the state of Texas. Didn't know Illinois existed until the 1980s.
Okay. Did you grow up in Eagle Pass?
My parents were migrant farm workers, so they moved us around a lot. So I lived in Eagle Pass. I lived in another town called Crystal City, and we ended up relocating and staying in Uvalde, Texas.
Okay. Do you remember how many years you lived in Eagle Pass?
I know I went to preschool, kindergarten, possibly first grade.
Okay. And then you moved to Uvalde.
I know that in 1974 we were in Uvalde just because I ran into an old school record of my younger brother. So,
Okay. Do you have brothers and sisters?
yes, I have 3 brothers and a sister. They're all younger than me. I'm the oldest of 5.
Okay. What are their names?
My next to me brother is Arturo. He's a year younger than me. And then he's followed by Miguel Salinas, who's 2 years younger. And then my sister Josie is 2 years younger than him, or a year actually younger than him. And then my youngest brother Salvador, who is 2 years younger than Josie. So my mom had us like 1 year difference, 2 years, 1, 2.
Okay. And what are your parents' names?
My father was Arturo Salinas de la Rosa, and he was born in Piedras Negras, Coahuila. My mom's Josefina Ortiz de Salinas. She was born in Allende, Coahuila.
Okay. As far as you remember, what brought your parents from Mexico to Eagle Pass? Because you said you were born in Eagle
Right.
Pass.
My father was brought contractually to work as a labrador, is what I found in one of his old permisos. So he was a labor worker that was contracted and brought over, and what you would now know as bracero. And he had a permit to come and work, and he would come, go back, come, go back, and then we finally ended up being brought over. I know that one of my aunts lived in Eagle Pass, so that's where we basically came to. I know I started school there with her. She was the one putting me in the school bus with my cousins.
Okay. From what you know, how many years did your dad spend as a bracero before they decided to stay permanently?
Don't really know how many years. All I remember is by the time we were in school, he was already in the United States staying.
Okay. Okay. So your dad was always in agriculture.
He told us he used to also work cleaning fields for fires, to stop fires, but he mostly did camp. You know, he would take care of vegetables, clean the weeds. There was a lot of betabel, he used to say, and cabbage,
Okay.
and other vegetables. But when we started working, he stopped going away. I remember that. We all would work on the weekends. outside Uvalde or Cotula or Pearsall, which are all small little towns around our hometown where we were at. And we would go pack onions, spinach, zanahoria, carrots, pickles. The one thing that I do remember us hating was the onions, because with the heat, it was making us cry. We were always crying there, so.
Can you tell me more about what that was like to be a
It-
migrant? But actually, it sounds like it was the whole family.
The whole family did
worked.
it on the weekends. My father always felt like school was the most important thing, so he never took us out of school. It was just for the summers. The summers, we would work during the weekends in town, and in the summers, he would pack up everything that we could pack up in our small car, board up the house con láminas or wood, madera, and just we would take off where he heard there was work, and we had no idea where we were going. And at an early age, I had to learn to interpret my father back and forth as he spoke in English and Spanish with the owners of wherever we were going to get hired. And we basically just took off. We had no idea where we were going, where we were going to end. So it was all by word of mouth. People would tell him, or cousins would tell him that somebody in such town was hiring. So I know we ended up in Colorado, Oklahoma, maybe not Colorado, that's too far. I know Oregon for sure, Niza, Oregon, because that's where my youngest brother was born. So that's how far we went.
He was born in Oregon.
Oregon. Nissan, Oregon. Yeah.
Okay. What was that like for you growing up? What did you like the summers? Did you not like the summers?
We hated it. Everybody went on vacations except us. Our vacation was pack up your gear, get yourself in what we describe as sardine can, and drive. We had no idea where we were going. But when we were there, the thing that made it worthwhile, if you want to call it that, was that we were all together. We were working together. So Mom was in one end of the field, Dad was in the other, all five of us in the middle. The two youngest did not work, which was Josie and Sal, Josefina and Salvador, but we called them Josie and Sal. And they would just entertain us during our lunch breaks. And we were all working together. We had a small little portable radio. I remember it very vividly, red and white, and my brothers and I took turns picking what kind of music we played. Dad was on one end singing along if I picked Mexican music, because we grew up listening to music. You know, so we would all work just cleaning, and it was fun, but at the same time we hated it because we were there by sunup until sundown.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah, we hated that. We were tired, and we would do it all over again every single day till the summer was over.
No days off?
The only day that we recall having off was Sundays, because the owners did not work. They did not want us working on Sundays. So that was the day for us to do laundry, for us to go shopping for groceries, and the biggest treat was going out and having hamburgers. In one of the pictures that I brought for you, we're sitting outside in one of the blue station wagon at a park. So we would sit there and just eat a hamburger and a pop, just together, spending time together.
From what you can remember, how long would you stay at one location? Was it?
Until the job was done. So it could be done 2 months, could be done in 1. It depended on how many other families they had. If we were the only family, that was working, that could take 2-3 months. It depended how fast we worked.
Okay. Did you guys have to kind of bring along your own housing, or was housing provided?
No,
How did that work?
Housing was provided by every single owner. We had no idea what kind of living arrangements we had. I remember one day we had nothing other than the room, which could have been as big as this room. There was no stove. Bathrooms were outside. Showers were outside. There were other homes around as well. And my mom repeatedly says that was the worst one ever, because there was a window where my father was outside right by the window with a fire, and my mom was making homemade tortillas, giving them over the window to my dad so he could cook them outside.
Good question, sorry. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the phone drop.
Also,
It comes and it goes. I don't know if it really look like right now.
Is it my microphone?
Yeah, no, it's not you, it's the.
Oh,
No, that's fine.
That's fine, okay.
That's fine. No. Repeat the one more question again, because the phone dropped and we heard it.
your question was, where did we know where we were going?
Yeah.
And a place to stay.
Right, what was, yeah, because I had asked, did you guys have to bring your own housing?
Housing.
Well, how was the housing figured out?
You know, the owner basically provided us a shelter, if that's what you want to call it, where we would be staying, as well as other families nearby sometimes. And I know that it was an empty room sometimes. We slept on the floor on blankets. There was bathrooms outside. The most accommodating,
I was gonna say, what
Living
was the
sit-
nicest place you had?
yeah, that was Twin Garden Farms, because we had our own room there with the kitchen. You know, the bathrooms again were outside, and they were shared with the other residents there too. So we all took turns at the shower and using the bathrooms. But there were like 10 stalls, I believe, on one side and 10 on the other, if I'm not mistaken. There were
Okay.
10 or 12.
Okay, well, we're getting to Twin Gardens. We'll get there.
I know. But that was the most best accommodations that we ever had.
Okay.
That was back in the 80s.
Did being gone as a kid, did being gone for the summer, did that cause problems with friendships? I mean, it sounds like your family was tight, but you'd be gone all summer. Did that?
I don't recall any friends until high school years, and very limited because we were never around. We were never around. Weekends when everybody's out playing, we were working. You know, and we could be without other kids out there that were in the same neighborhood and whatnot, but I don't think we ever established real friendships until we were older. Because I remember a couple of my brothers still hang around with some of their friends from school.
Okay. Because I know you have a strong connection to Uvalde.
Mhm.
But at the time, did you guys really have roots in the community if you were?
No, not when we were young. That happened after when we were in high school. And we started making friends and driving and going places. So we became a little bit more independent from our parents. So we were able to travel or get out of the house.
Okay.
If I hadn't gotten a driver's license, I probably wouldn't have gone anywhere with any of my friends.
Okay. Was the work enough to support the family?
Yes. Everybody kept teasing my father that he probably had a ton of money hidden in sacks or under the walls or on the floor because there was 5 of us kids and 2 adults, so that was a total of 7 people working. Of course, nobody got paid a lot back then, so no, there was never money. My father was finally able to buy a home after I got married in the 80s, and I think he was able to buy a much better vehicle in 85. So it was always used vehicles that were always breaking down.
Okay. Yeah, and why don't you start by telling me how did, because I think you told me before, Uvalde is near the border.
It's an hour away
Okay.
from Piedras Negras, the river, and an hour away from San Antonio, so in between.
So how did you get to Harvard, Illinois? You went from one end of the country to the other.
Yeah. We have a cousin, or actually an uncle and an aunt, the ones that I was living with in Eagle Pass when I was younger. Her husband worked for H&E Sud Farm here in Harvard, and he was always telling my aunt, and my aunt was always telling my dad, you know, and when I became a junior, I started working full-time, so I was supporting my family by working 2 jobs, part-time while working during school hours, and then on the weekends, I used to work as a cashier at a local store. And I did it for 5 years. So my parents stopped leaving when I got a full-time job. And when my aunt was telling my father about the job and how it was work and all of us could work, I told my father, hey, why don't we do that? It's not really fair that I'm the only one working full-time and you go on the weekends and the kids or the siblings didn't want to do that anymore. My brother Art ended up going to school, to college, and then he joined the Marines, so he left the family for a bit. So my father took me up on it and came. My sister actually ended up getting really angry at me because we came to Illinois and she had to work and she was still in school at that time, so she actually attended Harvard High School for I think 1 year. She finished. She didn't finish here. She ended up finishing in Uvalde, but she did have to go a couple of months to school and she hated it. She hated it. So we came to Illinois in 1984 and I got married in 85 and I stayed.
Okay. I gotta ask, is this the decision to move up to Harvard? Was that talked about, or was it like a summer where one day your dad said, okay, we're moving, pack everything up?
We talked about it because I know my aunt was always talking to my dad about it before I said something. I mean, I started working when I was a junior, so I worked 2 jobs in 1984. I graduated in 81, so we were still there 3 years before we left to Harvard, and then I stayed in 85.
Okay, and I think you had said at one point your dad, when you were started working full-time, your dad stopped migrating, or was he still
No, they
migrating?
came and they went every year until 1992 possibly, or 94 maybe. They stopped coming. Mainly because the other kids didn't want to come anymore. The siblings. My brother Art got married. My brother Mike got married. My brother Sal. So the only one that was in the house with them was my sister Josie. So what was the point? And number one, he hated the drive over here. He was scared of driving with all those semis on the interstate. So we were always the ones driving. He would drive in the small towns and we would always take over when we ended up in the interstates.
Okay. What was your first impression of Twin Gardens?
We were not welcomed. Everybody there was mostly families from Laredo, Texas, and Durango. We were the only ones that came from Uvalde, town they never heard of. You know, Laredo is further down south, so that was more like towards the border. And I know we were picked on, especially me, a lot, because I was old and very naive. Then I met the man that I married, Felipe. He was from Durango, so he had family here. He came to Harvard when he was 18, but most of his siblings were there before him, so he had sisters and brothers, you know, so most of his family was there except for his parents, and I think 2 or 3 younger brothers and sisters. So I wasn't very welcomed, but they did notice us right away. We were hardworking. The labor was very different because they used machinery. We were not used to machinery. We did a lot of things with our hands and the hose that we would clean the weeds off or pick them with our hands bending over. And here the company had like machinery where you sat down and a tractor pulled you and there was like 5 women or 6 and we were planting plants. And we right away got into, okay, this is easy. We got it. You know, so the owners there really liked us. They asked if we knew of any other families that would like to come with us. So I ended up asking a girl that I had met at one of my jobs with her family, and she came over and her family came. They liked it too, but they only came for like 2 years and then they stopped.
Okay, and
So it was different.
just so that I'm clear, initially the family came up to Twin Gardens, but your parents and siblings kept going back down to Uvalde. You were the only one that kind of stayed.
I'm the only one that stayed, and only because I got married, or else I wouldn't have stayed.
Why not?
I wanted to go back home. I always wanted to go back home. I thought when him and I got married, we discussed, you know, the possibility of us moving down there. But his excuse was, where would I work? This is what I know. This is the only kind of job I am familiar with. So he didn't want to go. And as a Catholic, born and raised, a traditional Hispanic Latina woman, I had to follow my husband, so I stayed.
Okay, was that hard to see your family come and go every year?
Yes, because I knew that they're gonna leave and I was gonna have to stay. It was hard.
Because I'm guessing they would come up for the summers and then go back.
The job basically consisted from April when they started the planting, so we would work from April until October. And then they would leave without me. And I started going down there for like Christmas, the holidays when, we had breaks off, especially after the kids were born. I would take them down there and we would spend the Christmas with them, Thanksgiving with them, or Easter, depending on whether or not we had money to go, because it's a long drive, but we would go. And then we started going to Durango, where I met Felipe's family, and they met the kids. And then his mom started coming over, so we stopped going. He's continued to go, but we stopped because we already knew everybody and everybody knew us. Yeah.
Now, did you live at Twin Gardens?
Yes.
Do you remember how long you lived at Twin Gardens?
Yes, from 1984 to 1988. 4 years.
What type of work would you do from October to April?
We had frozen foods that they packed inside. They were mostly vegetables that were shipped from other areas, and it was packed. But sometimes this job became scarce, so those of us that could go and file for unemployment, we were allowed to do that, so I was one of them. I did work for True Value Company one winter time, just for like a month or two before work started. But that was the only job that I had in town, working as an assembler. And then they put me in shipping because they knew I was bilingual and I knew computer skills, so they moved me.
What was it like living at Twin Gardens?
It was quiet. The families were all related to each other, because they stayed. Most of them from Laredo had family members there, sisters, brothers, cuñadas, etc. Felipe's family were all there, so everybody knew each other. There were just a couple of families that didn't belong to a family circle there, but very few. So there was a lot of parties. They would do pachangas every weekend, barbecues, carne asada. They would play baseball out in the field, or in the summers, one of the owners had like a lake that they could go and swim there and get together there. So Easter, for example, they would do that. And they would allow the employees to go do that as long as they stayed away from the residential premises.
Pause.
Mhm.
Like something cut off. I don't know if it's the audio or the video. I heard it. Right as soon as you said the last word?
Yeah,
Cut.
I heard. Ding.
Mm-hmm. It's a nice video.
Yeah, we're gonna switch batteries because this one's bad. Good, everything else is looking good.
It's very.
Switch these batteries real quick.
Doble A?
Yep.
What are you drinking?
It's just water.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
Wait.
Water
like-
bottle.
like a beat thing, like you're drinking like an energy drink or what?
Yes.
I don't even know where I found this. I think it was my
I
daughter.
don't know if it was cold.
She's a
Small.
bit, she's flashier than I am.
It's not flashy, that's why I was wondering. I couldn't see the name other than the logo on the bottom there.
You might have it.
Won't move.
Okay.
Do I change battery or 60% for this camera? I should look at it. We're good, right?
I think we're good with 60-60.
Would you stop the other one? No,
Yeah.
still recording. They still.
Where's your phone? Why do you have it out in your lap? Put it by your water.
Okay, we're
We're
good.
such a try keep track
Good.
of time. But,
The sound? All right, okay, let's continue.
yeah, we're talking about living at Twin Gardens. And during the season, what was a typical day like? If there was such a thing.
Oh, yeah, there was. Up by 4, so we can make I could make our lunches. And we had to be ready by 5, if not sooner, right by the bus that would pick us up and drive us to the field where we were going to be working at. And then we would get into the tractor that would pull us and we would plant. Unless they didn't have any plan for us to do, we would go and clean a field. But mostly everything consisted of us planting. Broccoli, cabbage, mostly. And the corn came later, but it was different. And that was the ending of the season where the corn would get packed, by us. So that was towards the end. But mostly in the beginning, it was mostly planting every day. Get up, go plant, come back home about 5, go get showered, fix dinner, get ready for bed, do it all over again. The only days we rested, Fridays we had half a day or Saturdays. No, actually it was Friday, because we ended up going to the bank and cashing our checks. So Saturday we worked, Sundays we were off, because that's when we did our laundry and grocery shopping. And we started all over again Monday. There were no holidays there at all. No.
And you had mentioned being Catholic. Were you able to have a religious life while at Twin Gardens? What was Sundays like?
Sundays we went to church, if my husband wanted to and would take me. I wasn't allowed to have a second car. My car ended up staying in Uvalde and my brother ended up using that when I got married. So if he didn't drive me, I couldn't go. If his family didn't invite him, then he wouldn't make a fuss about us having to go anywhere. So no, there wasn't a lot of going outs, other than whenever somebody was being baptized or there was a quinceañera or there was a wedding, but that was it. Those were the only parties and going outs that we had. I think I went out more with him when I was dating him to a movie versus after I got married. Everything changed. Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious, was there anything similar or different between your experience farming in Uvalde and your experience farming at Twin Gardens? Were there any similarities, any differences?
To me, everything was different. We were no longer working together all the time. Mostly the women were in the machines, and sometimes the men would be taken to other fields if there wasn't a lot of work for them. Sometimes my dad and my 2 brothers that came to Illinois with me or with us were picking rocks at other fields, cleaning the fields, just making sure that there was no big rocks or boulders for the tractor to dig into and break any parts. So there were different things. My mom and I were mostly together and my sister alone sometimes. Sometimes they were right there with us, sometimes not. So that was a big difference. From when we were little, we were always together. We never separated. And the work was very different. Now it's all machinery versus what we used to do. Granted, you didn't get tired of walking too much, but you definitely got tired of sitting such long hours in the same position,
How did you respond to snow?
I liked
Growing up
it.
in Texas.
I had it. We actually had one year where we went. I remember going to my grandma's 50th wedding anniversary, and we all dressed up, all nietas, and we were all part of her ensemble there, damas, whatever. And we were in Allende, and we had an ice storm. So coming back was very slippery on the drive. And the next morning, we made it home to Uvalde, but the next morning we had snow. It wasn't a lot, but we did have some snow. That was the only year I remember in Uvalde. But I liked it over here because the sun glistens on the snow and it looks like magic dust. It was beautiful. The trees were filled with it. But then when I moved and bought my own house and I had to clean my own driveway, that was no fun anymore. Because you do it every time it snows. It was heavy. It was hard. But it doesn't last long, so it was different. I liked it because the seasons are different here. You get beautiful summers, you get beautiful springs, and then you get fall while the colors change, and then you get snow. So every season is different in Illinois versus Texas. It's always dry, it's green, yes, but only if we get enough rain to get greenery to change colors.
Did the different seasons make farming easier or harder, in your opinion?
Easier in Illinois. Easier because apparently, depending on how much snow you get, the dirt is moist enough, is what I learned. And there's a lot of nutrients within the dirt and whatnot. And so we learned a lot of how the land is kept here versus in Texas. In Texas, you have those big, long agricultural things watering, and if it's a drought, you can't, because it dries everything up right away. So you're just wasting water versus here.
Now, once you got married and started having your family, were you still living at Twin Gardens?
Up to 1988.
How did that work? Getting married and having kids while still
Well,
living on the farm?
I had the bus pick up my son when he was in school, and I would go to work. We had one of my sister-in-laws was pregnant at one time, so she babysat while I worked. And then one of the other families had their mother babysit a couple of kids. And then at one point, my mother-in-law came and she helped babysit. By the time she came, my daughter was born, so I would bring my two kids to Twin Gardens where she would take care of them while I worked. But by that, I think by 1988, my ex-husband started working for a company that the Illinois Migrant Council helped us get, and I started working at the Illinois Migrant Council. And then through the Illinois Migrant Council, I met a man who was helping migrant workers, establish getting the first residency or residence. So the first home buyer program that was coming along, and I applied and we qualified to buy our own home. So I ended up getting our first home through that program.
Okay. And you had said before that on the farm there were no holidays.
While we worked, no.
On the farm, was there maternity leave?
No.
Again, that's all I'm curious.
You don't work.
How did that work?
You can't work. As soon as I was able to come back, I was asked to come back to work. So I didn't work while I was pregnant because my husband didn't want me to work. I worked up to a certain time during my pregnancy, and then afterwards, while I was taking care of my child, I thought I was going to get to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom. And my brother-in-law, one of my brother-in-laws had a young niece, so I started babysitting her and putting her in the bus. And the owner told my ex-husband that I needed to get back to work because they needed me. So I'm like, okay, I went back to work.
Yeah, I think you had told me once the saying was, if you're living here, you're working here.
Yeah, that was his thing. Nobody was there for free, so we had to work. Unless we had a medical condition that prevented it.
Okay.
You gotta remember, they were giving us free home. Housing was free, so we didn't pay anything. No bills, no water, no rents.
Okay. Why did you stay in Harvard so long?
Why not? I like Harvard. It reminded me of Uvalde. It's a small little town that I mentioned to you. If you Google it, it's just one main street going down through the whole town. The same thing with Harvard. And there's a lot of country. I like the country. All of his family was here. My aunt lived here. That was the only family I had. And then years later, an uncle came that I found out is on my mom's side, lives actually in Zion, Illinois, which is like 45 minutes away. So 2 family members were in the area. But that's where my husband wanted to stay, so I had no choice.
Tell me about the bodega.
A bodega is just a warehouse where apparently they stored the tractors, the machinery. And one of the co-workers that worked there, his name used to be Don Rey. Delfo did the decorations. He was another co-worker that worked there. And Don Chuy Reyes was the man that suggested to my ex, hey, you guys don't have to buy anything or rent a hall to get married. Let's just do it at the bodega. And they asked the owner for permission. My wedding was actually the first wedding in a bodega there. And they cleared it all up and they decorated it. He did the decorations with paper mache flowers and strings and just little flowers here and there and stringers. So he decorated it and we had our wedding there. And I brought you pictures of what we did.
From what you can remember, was there a lot of interaction between the families at Twin Garden and Harvard? Was there a lot
Outside people? No, definitely not. You got to remember that in those years, Mexican families were looked as different, bad, and we were being discriminated upon because everything that happened wrong in Harvard, it was always the Mexicans' fault. Even the church members didn't want us in church because we were loud. Our music was too loud. So no, we were not welcome. I think I told you that in Illinois was my first experience with discrimination. Because in Texas, everybody waved at you, everybody said hello to you, yes ma'am, yes sir. And when I came and walked in the mall with my cousins, Cherry, Veo Mall, everybody was looking at us like, who the heck are these people? Because we were talking in English and Spanish. And then they started asking, where'd you learn English so well? You know, so there was always weird questions being asked as to what's your favorite food and what are your favorite holidays and what language do you dream in? And like, I don't pay attention to what I'm dreaming, you know. So just weird questions, but we were always looked at as not welcomed, especially because we weren't leaving. We decided to stay, a lot of families. So when we were looking for a home, I know we were being discriminated because I had a child and everybody was turning us down in purchasing a home or renting a home because they felt we were a liability. Number one, he's probably a drinker, you guys are loud, you guys are gonna have parties, you have a child, you know, so we were turned down. So my husband ended up buying one of the trailer parks across from McDonald's back then. And that's where I came to live, you know, for a bit until we purchased our home.
Okay. Where's your family now?
They're still in Uvalde, Texas. My siblings, my mom and dad have both passed away, but my brothers and my sister are still there.
Okay. And remind me, how many kids did you wind up having?
Only two.
Two?
I only wanted two.
Okay. Are they still in the area?
My daughter is married and she lives in Woodstock with her husband and her two daughters, and my son resides with me along with his son.
Okay. So you did set down some roots. Now you've got, you know, it started with you and now you've got
Two kids.
kids and grandkids.
And grandkids. My roots basically were not desired that way, but that's how life threw a curveball at me, if you want to put it that way. As I stated, I stayed here because I got married and I had to stay by my husband. Then my kids didn't want to go to Texas anymore. They had friends here, you know, and now I'm divorced, so my plan is to move to Texas. That has still been my dream, to go back home and not in a coffin. I want to go live there. I want to go retire and live there, yes. So that's my plan. It's still my dream.
Okay. So you haven't been in agriculture for almost 40 years.
Since 1988.
At this point in your life, what do you take away? What do you carry with you from those experiences, either as a migrant or working at Twin Gardens? What do you carry from those experiences?
I hated it when I was living that kind of life, but now it's the best years of my life because my family was with me. We were all together. We were all working in unison, and I think we were more close then than we are now as adults, because now we all have our own lives. We all have our own issues, you know, and that's life. Everybody knows that. But that was not the way we were raised. My father always tried to keep us together. So every time I would travel to Texas, everybody got together. Now that I've been going there, even though we cannot all come together at once, I make it a habit to go visit every single one, including my friends. I get them together, we go and have coffee, we go to the movies, we go have lunch, but out of the 5 days that I go and spend in Texas, I make sure I'm seeing somebody every single day. That's something my parents instilled in us, or at least my father. So I guess what I want to say is, from my migrant years, the fact is that it doesn't matter where I come from, is who I've adapted to be, and how I maintain my roots still within me. Because my father and my mother were very hardworking people. I have learned to do that, and I have moved from being a farm worker to being a factory worker, to being a secretary, to being an assistant for a law firm, to being a social worker, so I've moved up the ladder, and I have been able to have 2 homes, not just one. Actually, now I own another one. But, it's just not to forget that who you were doesn't define who you have to be or have to be stuck being, because you can always have that dream and make it come true. My parents were only able to afford to work in the kind of work that they had. It wasn't a bad, option, but it made me work hard at what I wanted, and it made me hold on to the dream that I wanted something better, even more stronger. So my father's roots and my mother's roots are where are still instilled me as a migrant farmer. Do I want that life again? No. Would I go back to it again if I had to? Yes, because it's very honorable work. There's nothing wrong with starting in the bottom and going up. You should never be ashamed of who you were, and because that always leads you to where you're at now. You're successful because of the things that life taught you. And I know my father taught us how to be hard workers and to appreciate every single cent that we earned with the sweat of our foreheads. There was a lot of cold nights, a lot of days that we were wet working in the field because we worked in the rain. If it rained a lot, we'd stop. But a lot of times when we were cutting la espiga, which is the sugar cane, the little top piece, I can't think of the English word for it, but we would cut it. There were snakes underneath the ground that were sleeping, and they were full of frogs because there was a lot of frogs. Because again, there's dampness underneath the caña or the sugar cane, and there were big freaking snakes down there that you would just see them running around. Nobody ever got bitten except for our dog. Our dog got bitten for not leaving one alone, but he learned his lesson. He did live. He didn't die. But those kind of things, I think, taught us to be more, at least me, observant about my surroundings, where I'm at, and where I want to be, and where I see myself getting to in life because of all the things that we experience with them.
Okay. As we finish up, is there an aspect of your story that I haven't been able to bring out? Be it about your parents or your siblings. I just want to give you kind of an open-ended opportunity. Is there anything I missed that you would want to make sure is brought out as part of your story? Or if I've done my job?
I think my parents were raised the same way that they raised us. They were all farm workers. My grandparents did, on my mom's side, at least, they planted vegetables. They were albañiles, which means they would make their own bricks. I know that my father's father was a construction worker, but he was killed while working. So my grandma on his side was a widow, and she ended up remarrying someone. So she raised her kids as much as she could, but they were all raised in poverty, okay? That was the way that my parents raised us. And I know that when I bought my first home, my father told me, why are you ambitious? Why do you want a home with 2 bedrooms? You don't need that. Okay, so my father's mentality was, as long as you have a roof and somewhere to cook, you're fine. You don't need a big luxury home. To him, a home with 2 bedrooms was luxury. And I had to tell him that in Illinois, it was a law that if I had 2 children, a female and a male, each had to have their own room as they grew up because they needed their privacy. And that was the only way he accepted the fact that I wanted a home. Okay. So that was something that I had to teach my parents. It's not bad to want a home. We always rented homes. We were always being told, okay, your lease is up, I'm gonna do something with the house or whatnot, you had to move. So we were always moving. I did not want the same lifestyle for my children. I wanted better than what I had. Not because it was bad, because it wasn't, but I knew I could have better. So I make sure that I was able to keep moving forward by going part-time to school here and there and finishing my degree and being able to get better jobs and provide my kids with what they needed.
Is it safe to assume were your kids ever interested in agriculture?
No.
No?
No, definitely not. My son works at a factory, which is where his father worked. My daughter has hopped around different jobs, and right now she's doing something she likes part-time, and she has a different job that pays her good, you know, but it's not where she wants to be. She's a mom now as well, so things change. I knew for a fact that I wanted to get an education, and I was gonna go for it and work at it. I wasn't allowed to go to school while I was growing up by my father because they needed me at home. As I stated, I was the one that was translating back and forth for my dad, so I became his right hand. I then became my mom's right hand, you know, so I had many hats when I was growing up, being the oldest of 5 and being the one that they knew they could trust and being upfront with them and telling them what was being done or needed or said. So I had to put myself last. And that was one of the things that I learned to do even after I left. Always put yourself last, but don't ever forget about yourself.
Okay. Well, I do want to thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
You know, we will follow up and keep you informed on the process of and the progress
Mhm.
of the project. You were the first, but you won't be the last.
I am the first, but I will not be the last.
You're the first person that I've interviewed.
Oh, okay.
You know, you're the first person that we've
That's
done
fine.
a full interview on. I've got a couple of others scheduled.
I hope so. I hope so.
Okay.
I think it's important that people in the community know about our stories and why we decided to stay in Harvard, for example, for me. I don't know where they're all coming from, but there's reasons for us sticking in Harvard.
What was that reason?
I just told you, it reminded me of my home. That's my reason. So I'm stuck here for now, but once I can leave, I'll be gone. I'll always remember Harvard, because if I hadn't come to Harvard, I wouldn't be the woman that I am now. Okay? So there was a reason for me to come and establish roots in Harvard. I became very involved in my community, and as I told you earlier, there was a lot of racial and discrimination issues, and the mayor called for us to help, and I stepped up, and I helped. They needed people to run for school board, as you well know. I ran, I stepped up for that. So for me, I think I planted a seed for other Latinos in the community to get involved with their towns, because this is where they chose to stay. Just because we stay doesn't mean we stay hidden. Be known. You have a story. It's important that people get to know who you are and why you ended up here.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh.
Good. All right, let's cut.